When I arrived at my vacation house, a notice was taped to the door. Move out notice in 14 days. My name was printed underneath, listed as not authorized to occupy. I called my mother. She just laughed. You wouldn't help with our debt. Now you lose this too. At the county courthouse, the clerk typed the case number, paused, then went still. Cold-laced, she whispered. This paperwork doesn't match our records. Then she slid the paper back and said quietly, go there, right now. But as soon as I pulled into the driveway, the paper was lapping in the salt wind when I pulled into the driveway. White, official, taped dead center to the front door of my beach house like a target. I didn't get out of the car right away. I just sat there, engine idling, watching that paper flutter against the weathered blue paint I'd chosen myself 3 summers ago. Move out notice, 14 days. I could read those words from 30 feet away. My name was printed underneath in bold capital letters, and beneath that, a phrase that made my vision narrow to a single pinpoint of disbelief. Listed occupant not authorized to occupy premises. Unauthorized. In the house I'd bought with my own money. The house I'd saved for since I was 22 years old. The house I'd closed on without a single dollar from anyone else. My hands were shaking when I finally opened the car door. The November wind off the Atlantic hit my face, sharp and cold, carrying the smell of salt and rotting seaweed. I crossed the gravel driveway in 6 steps and ripped the paper off the door so hard the tape left gray smears on the paint. The plaintiff section listed 2 names, Richard and Donna Callahan, my parents. I called my mother before I could think, before I could breathe, before the rational part of my brain could catch up with the animal part that was already screaming. She answered on the second ring, cheerful. Hi, sweetheart. How was the drive down? There's an eviction notice on my door, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine, with your name on it. Silence. Half a beat. Then she laughed, not nervous, not surprised, amused. Oh, she said, so you found it. What did you do? She sighed like I was exhausting her, like I was a child throwing a tantrum over something reasonable. You wouldn't help with our debt, Megan. You think you can say no to family and keep everything you have? That's not how this works. This house is in my name. You can't evict me from my own property. Her laugh turned sharper, colder. You'd be surprised what paper can do, sweetheart. Then she hung up. I need to go back. I need to explain how I ended up standing on the porch of a $340,000 beachfront property in Nags Head, North Carolina, holding a fraudulent eviction notice filed by the 2 people who raised me. Because nothing about this made sense. Not at first. Not until I understood what they'd been planning, what they'd been building toward for months, maybe years. I'm 31 years old. I work as a senior data analyst for a healthcare consulting firm based out of Charlotte. I make good money. Not extravagant, but solid. Enough to save. Enough to invest. Enough to buy a small beach house in 2021, right before prices went insane, using money I'd been tucking away since my first real job out of college. My parents never had that discipline. My father, Richard, worked in commercial HVAC sales for 30 years. Good income, terrible spending habits. My mother, Donna, worked part-time as a dental office manager, but treated her salary like pocket money for shopping and lunches and weekend getaways they couldn't afford. They refinanced their house 3 times, took out a home equity line, ran up credit cards, borrowed against my father's 401k. By the time I was 28, they were drowning in $187,000 of consumer debt, and they started calling me for help. At first, it was small. Can you spot us $500 until Friday? We're a little short on the mortgage this month. Your father's commission check is delayed. I helped because they were my parents, because I loved them, because I believed them when they said it was temporary. Over 3 years, I gave them $34,000. I kept a spreadsheet. I have every Venmo receipt, every bank transfer, every text message where they promised to pay me back as soon as things stabilized. They never paid back a single dollar. And then, 8 months ago, they asked for more, $75,000. They wanted me to take out a loan against the beach house, the one asset I had that was fully paid off, and give them the money to consolidate everything. I said no, not because I didn't love them, but because I'd finally looked at the pattern, finally seen that every dollar I gave them disappeared into a hole that never got smaller, that they weren't trying to get out of debt. They were just managing the symptoms while the disease kept spreading. I said no, and I meant it. My mother cried. My father called me selfish. They stopped answering my calls for 3 weeks. When they finally started talking to me again, something had changed. They were too nice, too understanding. We get it, my mother said. You have to protect yourself. We shouldn't have asked. We'll figure it out, my father added. Don't worry about us. I should have heard the threat underneath those words. I should have noticed the way my mother's eyes went flat when she smiled at me across the Thanksgiving table last year. The way my father asked, casually, so casually, whether I'd updated my estate documents recently. Just wondering, he said, in case anything ever happened to you. I told myself they were just processing, just adjusting. I was wrong. The county courthouse in Dare County is a low brick building with salt-streaked windows and a flagpole that clangs in the wind. I drove there straight from the beach house, the crumpled notice on my passenger seat, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The clerk's name was Patricia Holden. She had gray-streaked hair pulled back in a clip and reading glasses on a beaded chain around her neck. She typed in the case number with 2 fingers, slowly, carefully. Then she stopped. Her face didn't just change, it drained, like someone had pulled a plug. Ms. Callahan, she said quietly, this case has a restricted hold on it. What does that mean? She leaned closer to the glass partition. Her voice dropped. It means there's a flag in the system. The paperwork submitted with this filing doesn't match our records. The court administrator is reviewing it for suspected document irregularities. My throat went dry. Irregularities? She glanced around, then slid a piece of paper under the glass. It was a printout of the docket entry, my case number, my name, the notice I'd ripped off my door. door. But there was something else. In the filing method column, someone had written a note in red. Identity verification failed. Notary seal inconsistent. Recommend immediate review. Go to your property, Patricia said. Right now. And don't go alone. I called my friend Danny first. Danny Okonkwo. We'd been roommates in college, and she'd moved to the Outer Banks 2 years ago to work as a paralegal for a real estate attorney. She answered on the first ring. Meg, what's wrong? I need you to meet me at the beach house. Bring your phone. Bring whatever you can think of. Are you okay? No. Then I called the Dare County Sheriff's Office. I explained the situation in 30 seconds flat. Eviction notice, flagged for fraud, parents named as plaintiffs. Clerk told me to go immediately. The dispatcher's voice tightened. We'll send a deputy. Do not enter the property until they arrive. But when I turned onto my street, when I saw what was waiting in my driveway, I almost drove off the road. A white moving truck was parked in front of my garage. A locksmith's van was behind it. And standing on my porch, holding a clipboard like she owned the place, was my mother. My father was already inside. I could see him through the window. My window, walking through my living room with his hands clasped behind his back, surveying the furniture like he was deciding what to keep. A locksmith in gray coveralls was kneeling at my front door, drill in hand. Stop! I didn't remember getting out of the car, didn't remember crossing the yard, but suddenly I was on the porch steps, and my mother was smiling at me. Not surprised, not embarrassed, smiling. Megan, she said warmly, I thought you weren't coming down until next weekend. What are you doing? She lifted her clipboard. Getting everything ready for the transfer. It's all legal, sweetheart. We filed the papers months ago. There is no transfer. This is my house. My father appeared in the doorway behind her. His face was harder than I'd ever seen it. You're not authorized to be here, he said flatly. That's what the notice says. You're an unauthorized occupant. I'm the owner. He shook his head slowly. Not according to the county records. My vision tunneled. What did you do to the county records? Before either of them could answer, I heard tires on gravel. A Dare County Sheriff's cruiser rolled up behind my car. Deputy Marcus Webb, according to the nameplate on his uniform. 12 years on the force, I'd learn later. Built like a linebacker. Face like a man who'd seen everything twice. My mother moved toward him immediately. Papers extended. Deputy, thank you for coming. We're executing a lawful eviction. This woman, she gestured at me, is an unauthorized occupant. We have documentation. Deputy Webb took the papers. He didn't look at them right away. He looked at me. Ma'am, what's your name? Megan Callahan. I own this property. I have the deed. I have the title. That eviction notice was filed fraudulently. The courthouse already flagged it. Webb's eyes moved to my mother, then to the locksmith who had stopped drilling and was watching with mounting alarm, then back to the papers in his hand. He pulled out his phone and made a quiet call. 30 seconds. When he hung up, his entire demeanor shifted. Colder. Harder. Ma'am, he said to my mother, the courthouse confirms this case is on a restricted hold. Suspected fraudulent documents. My father stepped off the porch. That's ridiculous. We have notarized. Sir. Webb's voice didn't rise, but it didn't have to. No lock change, no entry, no removal of property, not one more thing. Right now. The locksmith was already packing up, muttering apologies. My mother's face went pale. You can't stop an eviction, my father snapped. Deputy Webb didn't blink. I can stop a fraudulent one. Danny arrived 15 minutes later, just as the moving truck was pulling away. Empty. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug that lasted 30 seconds. Tell me everything. I did. Standing in my own driveway, watching my parents' rental car idle at the end of the street, I told her everything. When I finished, her expression was grim. We need to go back to the courthouse. Right now, before it closes. Patricia was still at her desk when we arrived. She waved us to a back counter, away from the main window. I pulled the full file. She said quietly, you need to see this. She spread 3 documents on the counter. The first was the eviction notice I'd already seen. The second was a quitclaim deed dated 7 months ago, supposedly signed by me, transferring ownership of the beach house to my parents for estate planning purposes. The signature was close enough that someone unfamiliar with my handwriting might accept it, but it wasn't mine. The loops on the M were wrong. The final N was too jagged. I never signed this, I said. My voice was shaking now. I know, Patricia said. Look at the notary seal. I looked. The seal said, State of North Carolina, County of Wake. The notary's name was Harold Benson, commission number 2001458892. I ran that number, Patricia said. Harold Benson's commission expired in 2019. He passed away in 2021. Danny swore under her breath. They used a dead notary's seal? It gets worse. Patricia clicked into another screen on her computer. The quitclaim was filed using an online account. An account registered to... She turned the monitor so I could see. The email address listed was my email address. The phone number was my phone number. The billing address was my Charlotte apartment. They filed under my identity, I whispered. Patricia nodded, and the account was created using the last 4 digits of your social security number for verification. I felt dizzy, genuinely dizzy, like the floor was tilting. How would they have my social security number? Danny's hand closed on my arm. Meg, they're your parents. Detective Allison Travers, Criminal Investigations Division, Dare County Sheriff's Office, had a voice like sandpaper and eyes that missed nothing. She showed up at my beach house the next morning with a search warrant and a forensic accountant named Dr. Marcus Chen, who specialized in identity fraud cases for the State Attorney General's office. Walk me through the timeline, Travers said. We were sitting at my kitchen table, my table, in my house, which still felt surreal. When did you first notice something was wrong? Yesterday, when I saw the eviction notice. Before that, any signs? Anything unusual? I thought back, forced myself to really think. My credit score dropped 2 points in September. I thought it was a reporting error. Dr. Chen made a note. Did you pull your credit report? No, it was only 2 points. I figured it would correct itself. What else? I got a weird email from my mortgage company company in July. Except I don't have a mortgage. I paid cash for this house. I thought it was spam. Do you still have that email? I might. I archive everything. Travers nodded slowly. We're going to need access to your email, your banking records, your credit reports going back 18 months. Why 18 months? She exchanged a look with Dr. Chen. Because we think this has been building for longer than you realize. Over the next 5 days, the scope of what my parents had done came into focus. Dr. Chen found the first fraudulent document filed 14 months ago, a change of address form submitted to the Dare County tax assessor, redirecting all correspondence about my property to a P.O. box in Raleigh. 8 months ago, they'd used my stolen identity to create an online account with the county clerk's office and filed the forged quitclaim deed. 6 months ago, they'd contacted my homeowner's insurance company, posing as me, and tried to change the policy's beneficiary to themselves. The insurance company had flagged it as suspicious and sent a verification letter to the Raleigh P.O. box. I never saw it. 4 months ago, they'd attempted to take out a $200,000 home equity line of credit against the beach house, using the fraudulent quitclaim to show ownership. The bank's underwriting department caught the discrepancy and denied the application. That's when they'd gotten desperate. That's when they filed the eviction. They were running out of options, Detective Travers said. The credit line fell through. They couldn't access the equity, so they decided to take the property outright by evicting me from my own house, by claiming you were never supposed to be there in the first place, that the deed they forged was the real one, and your deed was the fake. I stared at her. They were going to frame me. Travers didn't deny it. The search warrant on my parents' house in Cary yielded a cardboard box in their basement. Inside that box, Detective Travers found 3 drafts of the forged quitclaim deed with different signature attempts, a color photocopy of the notary seal, clearly printed from an online archive, my original birth certificate, social security card, and college transcripts, documents they'd kept for safekeeping when I moved out at 18, a printed guide titled Transferring Property Between Family Members with handwritten notes in my mother's handwriting, and one document that made Travers go quiet when she showed it to me, a petition for emergency guardianship. My name was listed as the proposed ward. The ground stated that I was mentally unstable, financially irresponsible, and incapable of managing my own affairs. The petition was dated 3 days before I arrived at the beach house. They were going to have you declared incompetent, Travers said. If the eviction worked, they'd have the property. If it didn't, they'd file this, claim you were unstable, get control of everything. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. My own parents had written a legal document calling me mentally unfit, not because I was, but because they wanted my house. Dr. Chen pulled records from the guardianship court in Wake County. My parents had already requested forms, already spoken to a clerk about expedited filings. They'd had a backup plan. They'd had a backup plan to take away my rights. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for a Thursday, 9 days after I'd found the notice on my door. Courtroom 3B. Judge Eleanor Vance presiding. 32 years on the bench. My parents showed up with a lawyer, Garrett Sloan, a guy from their church who handled wills and small claims. He looked nervous before the hearing even started. I had Danny's boss, Catherine Marsh, a woman who'd been practicing real estate law for 23 years, and looked at my parents like they were something she'd scrape off her shoe. Detective Travers was there with a thick folder of evidence. Dr. Chen sat in the gallery, ready to testify if needed. My mother tried to catch my eye as she walked in. I didn't look at her. Judge Vance called the case. She reviewed the eviction notice, the flagged documents, the investigator's preliminary report. Then she looked at my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Callahan, you filed an eviction action against your daughter, claiming she was an unauthorized occupant of a property you owned. Is that correct? My father stood. Yes, Your Honor. We transferred the property. I have the quitclaim deed in front of me. Judge Vance held up the document. I also have the forensic analysis confirming the signature is forged, the notary seal is fraudulent, and the document was filed using your daughter's stolen identity credentials. Silence. Your Honor, Garrett Sloan started. My clients maintain that this was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Judge Vance's voice could have frozen the Atlantic. Mr. Sloan, your clients forged a legal document, committed identity theft, filed fraudulent papers with this court, and attempted to forcibly remove the rightful owner from her property. Which part of that was a misunderstanding? Sloan looked at my father. My father looked at the table. My mother started to cry. Judge Vance wasn't moved. The eviction action is dismissed with prejudice. The forged quitclaim deed is declared null and void. Ms. Megan Callahan is confirmed as the sole legal owner of the property in question. She turned to Detective Travers. I understand there are criminal charges pending. Travers stood. Yes, Your Honor. Richard and Donna Callahan have been indicted on 12 counts, including felony identity theft, forgery, filing fraudulent documents with the court, attempted fraud, and conspiracy. Judge Vance nodded. Bail will be set by Judge Morrison in criminal court. This matter is closed. She banged the gavel. My mother made a sound, something between a sob and a wail. Megan, she called out. Megan, please. I didn't turn around. The criminal trial lasted 4 days. The prosecutor was Rebecca Huang, assistant district attorney, 8 years with the office, known for her closing arguments and her refusal to offer lenient plea deals. She laid out every piece of evidence: the forged documents, the stolen identity, the P.O. box, the failed credit application, the guardianship petition they'd never filed but clearly planned to. Dr. Chen testified about the 14-month timeline of fraud. Detective Travers testified about the search warrant and what they'd found in my parents' basement. A forensic handwriting analyst, Dr. Patricia Moreno, testified that the signature on the quitclaim deed was almost certainly a traced forgery, likely copied from a legitimate document. My parents' lawyer tried to argue that they were desperate desperate, that they were drowning in debt, that they never meant to hurt me. They just wanted to consolidate assets to save the family from financial ruin. The prosecutor responded with one sentence. They could have asked their daughter for help. Instead, they tried to steal her identity, her property, and her legal rights as a human being. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing was 6 weeks later. Judge Raymond Carter, 31 years on the bench, known for harsher sentences in fraud cases involving family members. My mother wore a gray dress. My father wore a suit I'd seen him wear to my college graduation. They both looked smaller than I remembered. Judge Carter asked if they had anything to say before sentencing. My mother stood first. Your Honor, I want to apologize to my daughter. We were scared. We were desperate. We didn't think it would go this far. We never meant to hurt her. She turned to look at me. Megan, sweetheart, you know we love you. We didn't know what else to do. Please forgive us. Please. I didn't say anything. My father stood next. I have nothing to add, he said flatly, except that none of this would have happened if she'd helped us when we asked. Judge Carter's expression didn't change. Mr. Callahan, your daughter gave you $34,000 over 3 years. She didn't owe you her house on top of it. And even if she did, that wouldn't justify identity theft, forgery, and conspiracy to steal her legal rights. He looked at both of them. You weren't desperate. You were entitled. You believed your daughter's success belonged to you. And when she disagreed, you tried to take it by force. He read the sentence. My mother, 4 years, state prison, eligible for parole in 18 months. My father, 5 years, state prison, eligible for parole in 2 years. Both full restitution of $34,000 plus legal fees. Both permanent restraining order. No contact with me, my property, or my financial accounts for the rest of their lives. My mother collapsed into her lawyer's arms. My father stared at me as the bailiffs approached with handcuffs. His eyes weren't apologetic. They were furious, like consequences were something I had done to him. It's been 7 months now. The beach house is still mine. I had the locks changed, the security system upgraded, and every document verified and refiled with proper notarization. I sold my parents' house, their house, which went to auction to pay their debts, and put the remaining equity into a trust for my younger sister, who had nothing to do with any of this and deserved better than the family she was born into. My mother writes me letters from prison, one every week, like clockwork. I don't open them. I have a lawyer who reviews them for any violations of the restraining order, then files them in a folder I'll never read. My father hasn't written once. I'm told he refuses to admit he did anything wrong, that he tells the other inmates I betrayed the family, and that none of this would have happened if she'd just helped. He's probably right about the second part. If I'd given them $75,000, they would have burned through it in 2 years and come back for more, and more, and more, until there was nothing left. Some people don't want help. They want hosts. I spent Thanksgiving alone this year. I made a small turkey breast, drank half a bottle of wine, and watched the waves crash against the shore through my living room window. It was quiet. It was peaceful. It was mine. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty about having something good.